And then when I got to college, they said, man, you can play jazz, but why don't you play acoustic bass? And I said, oh, okay. And then I saw this great bass player that was my age, a guy named Lonnie Plaxico. And I was there, I said, wow, you mean somebody can play like that on acoustic bass? And so when I got to college, I started playing the acoustic bass.
Today's guest is one of the most in-demand bass players in New York. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are chatting today with Kenny Davis. And you name it, he's played it. From playing in the Tonight Show band to performing, recording, and touring with artists like Herbie Hancock, Cassandra Wilson, and Freddie Hubbard. Kenny has done so much over the years, and we actually have a lot in common in terms of background. Kenny grew up in Chicago, and I lived in Chicago for about 20 years. We both also attended Northwestern, and we even both studied with Jeff Bradetich for a period of time. Very cool. Jeff's a past podcast guest, and Kenny and I dig into his background, what it's like playing for the Tonight Show band, lessons learned from former teachers like Jeff Bradetich, but also Ron Carter, Warren Benfield, how his classical chops ended up paying off for him big time throughout his career. Very interesting, and much more. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, D'Addario Strings. By the way, this interview was done live at the D'Addario Manhattan showroom. Beautiful space, by the way. And also to our sponsors, A440 Violin Shop, Steve Swan String Bass, and Upton Bass. More on them later, but let's dig into this conversation with the wonderful Kenny Davis. Kenny Davis. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with me.
Oh, thank you so much.
And so, Chicago, Illinois. Born and raised. And playing bass from what age? When did you discover the bass?
You know what? I was an electric bass player first.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. I listened to Earth, Wind & Fire. I listened to the Brothers Johnson and Motown, Temptations and all that stuff. And then when I got to college, they said, man, you can play jazz, but why don't you play acoustic bass? And I said, oh, okay. And then I saw this great bass player that was my age, a guy named Lonnie Plaxico.
Lonnie Plaxico, yeah.
And I was there, I said, wow, you mean somebody can play like that on acoustic bass? And so when I got to college, I started playing the acoustic bass. Now, my teacher in high school turned me on to Ron Carter, and then I played in the orchestra,
Yeah.
But I wasn't serious. Matter of fact, the orchestra in my high school, they combined the band and the orchestra, and it probably was about 15 or 17 people.
Yeah.
With the combination.
One group. Okay.
One group.
Yeah.
And they call it a bankestra.
Really?
You can't make this stuff up. It's a bankestra. So that's what I did. I played in the bankestra.
And then Northeastern.
Yes, Northeastern.
Mm-hmm. And was that, I've played a few shows at Northeastern over the years. So it's up on like Foster.
Yes, 5500 North.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Come in there, then you start playing upright bass.
Yes.
Who was your teacher then? Was it Warren Benfield at that point?
Yes.
Or was there wow. Okay.
Yes. Well, now see, in high school, there was this guy named David Holden.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw me on the streets, and said, hey, man, I heard you're a musician. Yeah. So he said, why don't you learn how to learn music? I said, oh, okay. So he taught me free. So by the time I got to college, I already knew what tonic, supertonic, dominant and all that stuff. So I was headed to things. And then when I got to college, I was still an electric bassist. Then I started playing the acoustic bass, and I was, Then I started studying with Warren Benfield. Now I was the type of guy that I would always go to get lessons, come to these jazz guys, lessons, I would go see Ray Brown. As soon as, after they finished playing, I'll go to Mr. Ray Brown. Mr. Brown, can I have a lesson? Okay. So now I'm getting lessons from Ray Brown. And then Niels Henning, Oscar Pedersen. Can I have a lesson? Oh, yeah. Free, free lessons, okay, so I'm getting lessons with Niels Henning Oscar Pedersen and Mr. Richard Davis. Can I have a lesson? Oh yeah, free lessons with Richard Davis. So I would get, and then bass player in Chicago named by Eddie DeHaas, jazz guy. Man, can I? So they would give me free lessons.
Wow, what's a Ray Brown lesson like?
Well, Ray Brown. My first lesson, he said, "Well, why do you want to take a lesson from me?" Because I want to play like, this is me saying, I want to play like you. Wrong answer. He said, "Man, I've been playing bass I was playing with Dizzy in the 40s. This is the 80s. You're supposed to, you're supposed to advance this stuff. Don't say you want to play like me. No." But intonation was real important with Ray Brown.
Yeah.
Sound was real important with Ray Brown, and professionalism.
Professionalism.
Yes.
Showing up on time. Knowing your music.
Yeah. But and then when I started studying with Ron Carter, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Professionalism. Make sure you can play in tune. Make sure you know your standards and all that stuff. Yeah.
What sort of material did you work on with Warren Benfield? Were you going through some method books or some orchestral rep or solos, or what were those lessons like?
Well, Samandel.
Yeah.
And then I learned all of the 9 Beethoven Symphonies.
Really?
Yes, I had to. I learned all 9 of them. That Beethoven 9th, that trio section killed me.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What a great set of influences to have, and some of the greats in music there, and approach them. They give you that. So you're at Northeastern. You're having experience with these great people.
Right.
What happened next? What was next for you?
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, I didn't start playing acoustic bass till I got to college. So I study, and I would never. Say this, my first year of college, I basically didn't do well at all because I was practicing, but I was practicing. And, Warren, I remember, having lessons with Warren, and he said, okay. He said, "Man, that's okay for a jazz guy."
Oh, yep.
And then I stopped and I said, "Well, Mr. Benfield, look, I don't want to be just like a jazz guy, but I said, I want you to teach me just like I'm going to be a classical bass player." He said, "Okay now. All right." And then from there, he was hard on me, because he said he knew that I can do it.
Yeah.
And so, now Warren would teach me. He said, "Okay, now if you play the Beethoven, whatever we were working on, this is how we do it in the Chicago Symphony. But if you go play for with the Pops in Boston, they do it this way, so it might be a little faster, a little bit more expressive on this." So he showed me both ways of playing the same piece. Yeah.
And you got some time in with Jeff Bradetich too, and these were his young years as a teacher. He's just, he just celebrated his 60th birthday. Did a recital here in New York at Carnegie, the recital hall.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There. Yeah, but go back. That was Jeff. He was a young whippersnapper at that point.
Well, I met Jeff through this great bass player in Chicago, and I was just on the phone with him coming here. Reggie Willis. Matter of fact, I missed my stop. I was supposed to get off at going to the Lincoln Tunnel. Next thing I know, I'm talking to Reggie Willis. I'm going to the George Washington Bridge. No. So I had to double around. But I got here plenty of time. But so I met Jeffrey through Reggie, and and he taught me the vibrato, as far as bass solos, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Those shifting drills, those vomit exercises. Those
that's what it is. The vomit exercises. Yes, the vomit exercises.
They're good for you though. They work. They might not be everybody's favorite, but they work.
I gave the vomit exercises to some of the students up there at Rutgers.
It's a hard thing to wrap your head around at first, especially if you haven't done that kind of. But it's so great. And I remember talking with Gary Carr about those exercises, and he says, these are as much a right-hand exercise as a left-hand exercise, trying to figure out the bow and the placement and the tone, balance. And
Right. Have you ever checked out the Gary Carr? I think it's like a box set of his DVD. So that's really good about placing the bow closer towards the bridge to make it slower. And this stuff works.
It does.
Yes,
it does.
Yeah.
So in Chicago, and where'd you go from there? You've done so many things.
All right. Now we talking about that's what Warren Benfield. Now, studying with Warren Benfield, I was also the bassist for Von Freeman.
Yeah, Von Freeman.
So, I would play. My first time playing with Von Freeman, because I did the jam session. I played from 9 o'clock to like 3 in the morning with no break.
Wow.
So the first time that happened, I woke up the next day and my fingers were like, I couldn't even open my fingers up because, playing from 9 to 3 in the morning with no break. Only break that I got was they were trying to figure out what tune to play.
Yeah.
And then, it got better. I got stronger, so.
The New Apartment Lounge is a name that I remember with Von, I think, was playing. I don't remember if that was the venue.
Yeah, that's one of them.
That's one of them?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Now, after getting my acoustic bass together, I'm taking lessons with all these people, and I'm studying with Warren Benfield. I'm playing with Von Freeman, and then the local jazz guys would see me and play. Oh man, maybe you need to do it this way. So there was a guy named in Chicago, a trombone player, Bill Porter. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, Bill Porter used to be the trombone player for the Bozo Show.
The Bozo Show, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Great trombone. He can bebop.
Yeah.
So he was a contractor. So, all of a sudden Bill said, "Hey man, can you play a blues?" I said, "Yeah." So I had to play like all 12 blues for him. Then he said, "Well, can you read this?" Yes, okay, I can read that. He said, "Oh, you can read that? Well, play this on acoustic bass." "Oh, okay, you can do that." Okay. So next thing you know, Bill Porter called me. "Hey man, you want to play with Tom Jones?" In like Indiana is like a Holiday Star Theater. I can't remember what. So now I'm playing with Tom Jones and Red Skeleton and stuff like that. And then with Bill Porter, so I would play with Von like on a Monday night or whatever it was, and I would play with Bill Porter like 5 nights a week. At a jazz club. I remember it was a jazz club called Blondie's.
Blondie's.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
You're
So I was
busy
working.
guy.
I was working like 6 nights a week, for years.
What prompted the move from Chicago? Because you're in Chicago working. How did that unfold?
Well, my good friend Lonnie Plaxico, great friend of mine. We're still friends to this day. He's like a brother to me. He said, "Yeah, man, he always said New York, man, if you want to go to another, New York is the next place, So, and then that was my goal, getting to New York.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting, just before I moved to New York, I started getting calls by the guy, man, he was working with Michael Jackson. I can't remember his name. Something 88, whatever.
Yeah.
Tom 88 or something like that. Well, he was working with Michael Jackson. You talking about Thriller Michael Jackson. That. And he was starting to call me, and I'm starting to do jingles and all that stuff. But I left all that behind to go play in New York. And then, after getting to New York, I was playing with this band called OTB, Out of the Blue, on Blue Note Records. And then it went from there.
Organically, just sort of one thing led to another.
One thing led to another. Yes. Yeah.
Whenever anybody's going to the Midwest, and I lived in Chicago, Illinois for years and years, I tell them to go to A440. If they're looking for a bow, if they're looking for a bass, if they need some repairs done, if they have a student who's looking for an instrument, A440 has been serving the community for years and years. They're located just west of Wrigley Field in beautiful Chicago. They do great work, and they've been a big supporter of bass events over the years, whether it's the Chicago Bass Festival or really any bass event. A440, you guys rock. Check them out at a440violinshop.com.
I've said it a million times. You're making something by hand out of wood. You can do everything right, and it can still go sideways.
That's Eric Roy of Upton Bass talking about their concept of no B stock. And though it's painful to work a piece of wood for days and discover some flaw, the right call, and this is what Upton does every time, is to just get rid of that wood and start new. You never know what's going on under the surface. Despite your best efforts, wood is an organic thing, and Upton takes its commitment to quality seriously. Learn more at uptonbass.com, and thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. And at some point, you head out west, and you're playing Tonight Show.
Doing the Tonight Show, yes.
Jay Leno. Wow. So how long were you in New York before that unfolded? When did that happen? And just tell me about that.
Now, before I left to go to L.A. to do the Tonight Show, I was playing with Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
So I was with him for 3 years at that point. So Herbie's like, what? Basically, you don't need me to go to play like 3 bars? And I said, hey, Herbie, But the great thing about that, when I was living in L.A., I was still playing with Herbie locally in L.A., and I was playing with George Duke. I was playing with Bob James, and it was hard. Here was the hardest thing for me going to L.A. because when I first went to L.A., I did the Tonight Show, and that was it, and I would come home. Before I went to L.A., I was doing Broadway. I'm still doing the show called Frozen. Mm-hmm. I'm the sub guy, so I was doing Lion King. I'm doing all the major Broadway shows, subbing on all these shows. Yeah. I'm doing Sesame Street. I'm doing jingles. Ron Carter hooked me up. Started my jingle career. I studied with Ron Carter for many years. And same thing with Ron. Ron would come to me and say, "Hey man, can you read this?" "Oh, okay." "Oh man, walk through this." So he said, "Okay." I didn't think nothing of it. So he called me, "Hey man, you want to make some money?" "Yeah."
Wow. So
man, next thing you know, I'm doing, Ron Carter started my jingle career. I'm doing these Kentucky Fried Chicken commercials and, McDonald's and all this stuff. And then I did an international commercial with Elton John and Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, whatever it was, And then, so man, I left all of that and went to L.A., and just did one thing, was the Tonight Show in the beginning.
What a change at that moment.
Oh, at the moment. Then, but as I started going around L.A., I started playing with Patrice Rushen's trio in L.A. Then I started doing, I'm doing things, with John Clayton, who called me over to help do stuff. And then I'm going out with George Duke. I'm going out with Bob James. I'm going out with still playing with Cassandra Wilson and Diane Reed. So I'm doing the Tonight Show, and every weekend I was gone somewhere, Yeah.
Because that was 5 days a week, right?
Yes.
Tonight Show. And what was that? Just the show? Like, what were the hours like for that? You come in
we come in at 2.
Yeah.
And we tape from 5 to 6. Yes. But see, now I was never the type of guy that just would come in, just sit down and So I went after I was there for about a month or 2. I got with the best readers in the band. It was Chuck Finley, and then there was Matt Pearson. So we got together, and I said, "Hey man, look, can we get together like 2 or 3 times a week, and just sight read stuff?" So man, think about it. I did sight reading, and stuff got harder. About the second year, we were doing some hard stuff, just sight reading stuff. So I sight read like stuff 2 to 3 times a week for 3 years. So when I left the show, I can come in at anything.
You can read anything.
Yeah, right.
But man, you got getting those reading shops going, Warren Benfield and all that time, all that training, how it paid off all these times with these different players.
And yes, and then before I did this Tonight Show, I forgot I got to say, I went to when I got called to play with Herbie, I started hooking up with Dave Holland, which was incredible. Wow. I would go up to his house, really, and we would play, and he would say, "Hey man, check this out." You know, he would get on the piano, and and incredible, man. You know,
what a great musical mind.
Yes. Wow. Yes. You know, he showed me about how to play open, but make it sound cohesive, which is a whole nother way of playing. You know?
And then while you're playing the Tonight Show and you're out in L.A., you get some time in with John Clayton, too. Another bass legend and wonderful person and so much to offer.
John is the ultimate musician and gentleman.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So you go out there and you're doing the Tonight Show, but then everything starts to build, and you're out every weekend, and busy schedule. And what was the next step for you? You're back here, talk about that.
Okay, now I moved back to New York. And naturally, I'm setting things up as I'm going back.
Yeah.
I'm still living in L.A. I moved back. Within 5 days, I'm doing tours. I'm back to doing my touring, and then record dates again. I came in doing another record. Let me see what else. And I knew that it was going to be a little slow for me coming back to New York. So that was the perfect opportunity for me to go get my master's. So that's what I did.
Okay.
I said, okay, it's going to be slow for like another year and change, but so that's what I did. So while I was a little slow, I got my master's degree.
And you did that
at Rutgers University.
Rutgers.
Yes.
Okay.
So now I'm teaching there.
So, what a cool, right. To be the student becoming the teacher at the institution, and with all that experience under your belt, what a great decision to go back and get more training. It says something about who you are and the lifelong learning, and always trying to get lessons with people and absorb. And it must have been really interesting having all that experience under your belt and then going and were you studying classical? Were you studying arranging? Were you studying, what were you?
I was studying arranging, and I learned how to write for big band. I learned how to write for, strings and
you'd been doing some of that with John Clayton back in LA too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So some of the stuff that I did, for my final project, I had already done with John. So, What
was John's approach to arranging like? What was it like working with him on that?
So when I started, my approach to his approach was, I said, so John, what book should I get? What book? I ain't study out of no book. So he started me on transcribing Horace Silver. Get the two horns first. Come on, John, I want to, now. Get the two horns first, right for the four horns. And that's what happened. Then we went with bigger horns. Yeah.
Oh. And then later at Rutgers, you're arranging for string groups too? And
well, I took that on my own.
Okay.
Because I started playing with this lady, her name is Akua Dixon, and she's called String Indigo.
Yeah.
And so I started arranging for that group, yeah.
I think it's really interesting when people start doing a lot of arranging or composing, and do you feel like that changed the way you think about bass playing or about musicianship, like really digging deep in terms of that? Because I think it's one thing to be like a totally top level player, which obviously you already were, and maybe you've done some writing before that too, but to really go in on arranging, did that change how you think about?
Yeah, well, arranging is a whole different animal. Especially writing for a big band and big ensembles, so you really have to, these inner voicings and all that stuff. So even now, when I solo from arranging, sometimes I hear those inner voicings. I will play that. Those inner voicing, so it does help out. Yeah. Wow. It's deep. This music is deep. I was over Ron Carter's house not too long ago, and he's like, "Yeah, man, hey, Kenny, man, I'm still trying to learn this music." Ron is like 80-something years old, still trying to learn this music.
Yeah.
You know.
It's good to hear if someone like Ron is still searching, right?
Still searching.
Yeah, if you're done searching, something's wrong because you maybe reorient yourself.
Still searching, you know.
And so you're teaching where you went to school, and you're working with young musicians or musicians that are going to go on, and obviously this art form and the business of music and all that stuff, it's a constant moving target, and it's changing.
Right.
And to my mind, there's the learning of the instrument and the craft, and some of that is really timeless, right? Like what you're working on with Warren Benfield, people were working on generations before that, and they're working on now. And then there is the business aspect of it, which does change a little more quickly. Like, what are some of? And we can talk bass, we can talk technique, we can talk like getting gigs, but like, what are some of those lessons that you dig into with your students or with young musicians that are heading into this world?
Well, first place, I talk to them about learning how to play different basses, because nowadays, when you're on the road, you don't carry a bass.
You don't want to be bringing that, through security.
Just because
it's impossible.
Some airlines won't even allow that.
Yeah.
So now you got to get. How do you learn how to play a bass that if you're used to a D neck, then all of a sudden you play an E flat neck?
How do you do that? Because to me, the thing that seems to me extra challenging if you're doing something in an improvised context is I feel like it's like wearing funny shoes, and you can't think, like, it seems like you have to be able to be free and open and really spin. It's like, it seems like that foreign bass, especially like you're talking about a D or an E flat neck. That's a major. People who don't know what we're talking about, most people do, but the basses are traditionally made either you put your first finger right at the neck block and it's either a D or an E flat. So it's essentially a half step off. Right? Okay. So what do people do?
Well, because first place, I have the students, they have to know how to tune the bass by ear.
Yep.
But I bring a tuner with me.
Yep.
You know, all the time. I have a tuner. I mean, I use Peterson tuners, and I have a microphone in there. I tune it to the piano, because naturally, if I'm going to Europe, its tuning is different, and I spend time with that instrument. You know, I know on my instrument, if I put my hand right here on the shoulder, right here, and I play right here, and I put my hand down, that's going to be a C. Yeah. All right. If I put here, if we go down here, I know there's going to be a particular note on my instrument. So when I'm playing with Billy Childs or some person like that, I have to play ding, ding, ding. Then he might have just in that one bar, bing, boom, and I got to come back here. So, you have to do it in tune. Yeah. Same thing. That's a segment when I'm playing Frozen on Broadway, the new show Frozen. Yeah. There's a part that I got to play, ding, up there, and
find it. Got to find it.
Got to know where it's at. Yeah. Okay. But no, they have to, and I tell them about you have to bring the tuner with you and find where the notes at. Spend some time. You have to. Okay, E flat now. Oh, wow. So I'm used to playing an F, but now that. F sharp on my bass is an F here, and so you got to spend some time.
It's part of that professionalism thing. You got to get that template. In your mind, and just accept that it might be an adjustable template a little bit.
Right. And I said, now understand that now. If the bass is too far gone, then you might just have to stick to like first or second, third position.
You get something with the strings 2 inches off the fingerboard or something radically different. Yeah, it might just be a lost cause.
Right. Now the old guys, when I was learning how to play bass in Chicago, they stop, man, you should never be out of tune in money position. Like, what you talking about? Money position was half position. You shouldn't be out of tune in half position. So that's what they would say. They would call that the money position, because you should not be out of tune on the money position. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Steve Swan String Bass. And there's a lot that goes into being a bass player beyond that initial purchase of a bass. We need bass bows, we need bass covers, we need stands, we need new strings, pickups, wheels, quivers, upgraded gear like tuning machines, end pens, repair parts, all of that. And when someone's looking for some new bass gear or to upgrade something on their bass, I send them to Steve's shop. He's located just south of San Francisco in the Bay Area, and he is the largest dealer in basses between Los Angeles and Canada. That is a big distance, folks. Learn more at steveswanstringbass.com. And thank you so much, Steve, for sponsoring the podcast. This episode is brought to you by D'Addario Strings. Our friends at D'Addario want to help listeners change their strings safely and efficiently, and they have a few tricks to help you achieve that. Make sure you have the right size string for your bass. String sizes are determined by playing length, the distance from nut to bridge. If your bass has non-standard after lengths before the nut or after the bridge, you may need a different size than you think. Learn more at orchestral.daddario.com, and thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. What do you people love? I always forget to ask questions about gear, and then people write in and say, why do you ask questions? So, and when you're not touring and you are here and you're playing on, your gear, what do you like? Tell me about your bass, and then maybe like what you like to use in terms of amplification and pickups.
Well, right now my basses, I have a German Juzak bass for my acoustic bass. My electric basses are all Federa basses. I'm a Federa guy. I used to play the Fender jazz bass, and now all of a sudden I'm a Federa artist. So, I got Federa basses. My wife is like a bass.
Here's another one.
And the electric bass strings I use are DR. And the acoustic bass strings I use are D'Addario. And I have D'Addario chords, but my cables are monster cables, and
are you using Kaplans or Helicors or
Helicors.
You're using Helicors, the jazz or the hybrid?
The hybrid.
The hybrid, because you're doing some bow work,
yes, I do bow work. But here's the difference. My amplification is still, I'm still with I still use SWR, even though they don't exist anymore. But right now I'm still haven't figured out which company I want to deal with yet now. But the company, all the companies that I dealt with, I've been with them for over 20-something years, and I just enjoy them, and that's what I use. Express, here's an imperfect example. When I was doing the Tonight Show, the stuff that was getting thrown to me to play,
sure.
Man, we'll give you this. Man, just play this on the show. No. And I just stuck with the people I dealt with.
Yeah.
Oh, it was incredible.
It's a good policy.
But it's a good thing to have. If you play, man, we'll give you this. Just play it on the show one time, and you can have. And I'm good friends with Marcus Miller, so he's like, man, don't take everything.
It's a slippery slope.
Right. So at that point I decided that I'm just going to deal with the companies that I like, and those are the companies that I've been with for 25 years. Wow, that's a lot.
You were mentioning earlier when we were talking about Von Freeman, those hours on the bandstand, right? Yeah, like without a break. What was it, like 5 hours or something?
No, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 6 hours.
Okay, 6 hours.
6 hours, no break.
6 hours doing anything, even with breaks, is a lot. No break. Now, those maybe one doesn't want that. That's maybe not the ideal situation. But even whether it's on a show, which can be long hours, or playing a gig, that can be long hours and demand. Like, what do you do to stay healthy on the instrument? Because bassists get injured all the time, moving gear and like anything in terms of warm ups or in terms of just like best practices on the gigs so that you don't burn yourself out physically.
Man, there's a great bassist that I took lessons with in Chicago. He used to play with Willie Pickens. It'll come to me again, So, they taught me to take care of your hands.
Yeah.
Now, for example, one thing that I do, and I still do to this day, I would warm my fingers up, take lotion, and I would do each joint warm my fingers up. Each joint, warm them up good.
And is this on both hands?
Both hands.
Both hands. Okay.
Yeah. You lotion, and then each joint, stretch. Naturally, you stretch. And so you think about it. So now when I'm playing, when I finally get on the instrument, then you got to give it time because now your calluses got to get back hard. Because when you do lotion, your calluses are soft, so you don't want to get on the instrument then
right away. Yeah.
So. So you give yourself about 5 minutes, your calluses get soft. But now when I'm on the instrument, when I start playing and I did my stretches and all that stuff, I'm not starting at zero. My joints are already warm.
Yeah.
Instead of, it's just like anything. You think about it. What athlete will come on, on whatever field they're going to play, whether it's a basketball field, a basketball court, a tennis court, or a baseball field, football field, where they just don't warm up, don't do anything, or stretch before they play.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah,
that would never happen because you injured yourself. You will tear a tendon,
Yeah.
But that's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, see my hands. I look at these young bass players. They got the end of their fingers out like torn.
Yeah. I know. I see that myself, and so many people.
Yes.
Okay, people, and we are athletes of the small muscles.
Right.
We are athletes,
Yes.
so it is. But I think so many people just jump up and start playing.
No. All my students at Rutgers, no, you all don't come. You all warm up first, and I talk to them about because I go to the gym. Mm-hmm. No, do some exercise. Just don't sit around the house eat potato chips. Really. Come on, So, I said, look, you all were a male before you were a musician, and then now you're a man, but you all were male before you were a musician. So, man, take care of your bodies, I said, if you want to play this instrument for the rest of your life, take care of yourself.
You were also mentioning about Ray Brown and professionalism.
Yes.
And I think that's a
and
huge...
Ron Carter.
And Ron Carter.
Professionalism.
Okay.
Those two guys.
So, and a lot of people, young and old, make a lot of mistakes in that department.
Yes.
What advice might you give people, young people or older people, in terms of you've mentioned several things, but even in terms of networking or approaching people or trying to build your network of performers.
Well, first thing from Ron and Ray, man, they both like, man, don't show up to any record session or any gig with your instrument not being in its top form. Mm-hmm. If you're here, something's going on, get it fixed.
Yeah.
Same thing with Ron Carter. Don't show up, Buzz is here. No, go get that fixed, So, that's the same, it's interesting because it's how that is implanted in me. Something was going on with my instrument last week. Right away.
Take it in.
It's gone in.
Yeah.
Hey, you are fixed, because I can't come on, if you hire me to play on your record and you hear this,
Yeah.
No, come on. No.
Right.
So make sure your instrument is fine. Make sure you're in good form. Don't come in there, don't go hanging out all night, get some sleep, and Ron Carter was like, hey man, you got to get some expensive shoes. Like, what? Okay, yeah, whatever. You see me again, hey man, you got to get some expensive shoes. And then finally he said, because, man, get some good quality shoes because you're a bass player. Usually, when us as bass players, when we playing, we're standing up.
Yep.
Usually on the break, you might be talking to someone. You're standing up.
Yep.
Then you got to go up and play again. You're standing up. Mm-hmm. So, man, you got to get you some shoes because he said, later on down the line, if you don't do that, you're going to have knee problems.
Right.
So it's much more than that. It's about your body. So look at Ron. He's like 80-something. Incredible. He's in. See it. Well, that's what.
It's but it's so important. It's so easy to forget, and those are the habits that if you don't have them, they build up. I made that mistake myself a couple of years ago. I bought some shoes I thought looked real cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then I paid the price. I played, and then I think I had a week of I was doing Harry Potter live concerts, right? So that's like 3 hours, something like that,
right.
And we had 8 shows, and I could barely walk at the end of that week.
But
and
now you understand.
I went and I bought those. Like they're clever. They feel like tennis shoes, but they look real real nice,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
I can be on my feet and
Right.
stuff like that. But things start things start to go though,
Yeah,
and then you're hauling a bass
Right.
in and out of places,
Yes,
hauling an
yes.
amp maybe,
Yes, yes,
and if you're
yes.
not in good shape and you're letting your fingers go, you're
Yes,
letting your
yes.
bass go.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are the things. That's all professionalism.
Yes. You got to
And
take care.
taking care of yourself.
You got to
and
take
your
care of
gear.
yourself. You first, then the instrument. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because if you don't feel good, you ain't gonna be able to play good.
Ah.
Yeah. So.
Man, you have done so much. I appreciate getting some time to chat with you. I usually end with if you could go back and give younger Kenny some advice. So like you could pick the age, but it could be Northeastern, anywhere, pick the age, could be later or earlier. But what might you tell your younger self?
Well, I would tell my younger self, get more sleep. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I used
to burn the candle.
Get 3 hours of sleep, and I was
Really?
fine. Yes. I mean, even still to the day, sometimes I get 3 hours of sleep. I went to Europe, and I was up for 2 days, and we're talking about a couple of weeks ago. So I got to get that together.
Yeah.
I got to get. So I told my wife, I said, you know what? After I got another week. I'm gonna get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, it's remarkable what that does for you when you can't get. Yeah, and I think we all go through times where we can't or we don't we're stressed or whatever. But boy, there's nothing like it.
Yes.
Wake up after that 8 hours and you just feel everything's in control. Woo. You can.
Yes, So get more sleep. Yeah.
Wow, man. Well. You've done so many great things in your career. I can't wait to follow along. I'd love to sit down and do a round two sometime.
Okay. Round two, we can do round two because there's so much more stuff.
Kenny, thank you so much for chatting. And folks, you can learn more about what he's up to, what he's played on. It's truly impressive at his website, kennydavis.net. And like I said, this was done live at the D'Addario Manhattan showroom, a beautiful place in Midtown. My goodness. It was so cool to chat with Kenny and Michael Thurber, who I also chatted with, and you'll hear from him soon. And just spend time there. Wonderful time. I also toured the D'Addario factory, which was fascinating. I'm writing a blog post. It might be out at this point by the time you're hearing this about that experience. Very cool. Great company. So thank you, D'Addario, and certainly our other sponsors that are on this journey with us. This podcast continues to grow, and we continue to do new things like travel to cities like New York and chat with people. So it's super fun. I'm really glad that you're on this journey with me. And if you want to reach out, feedback@contrabassconversations.com. We'll put you in touch with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this interview with Kenny or any of the interviews that we do or any ideas for guests or topics, anything along those lines. That would be wonderful. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't. There's a link on the site, or you can just go to contrabassconversations.com/subscribe. And you can do that through a variety of methods, including our custom Contrabass Conversations app, which has been around for years at this point and very cool. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, and Mitch Mooring. Mitch is making beautiful basses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and learn more about that at mitchmooring.com. And thank you also to Krista Copper for archiving and cataloging and categorizing what we talk about in the podcast. Super helpful. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.